Good morning, Dr. Carlisi.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Hope you're staying warm on this freezing weekend we're having.
Oh, yeah. But hopefully, it looks like it's only going to be like for 24, 48 hours, so it won't be too big because Sunday's supposed to be in the 40s. We'll see.
Yeah, that is true. This is it's a weird December for sure.
I know. But you know what? I'm glad it's happening now. It's already in February, so we don't have much more to go till spring comes.
I agree. The weather the past year was like really weird. Like for example, I got married in November, and if you would have told me on November 5th it was going to be 76 degrees, I would not have believed you.
Wow. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. But I don't know, the shift in weather is just it's wild.
It is. Yeah. It's very unusual
What?
to see that type of changes so quickly. So,
I agree. Good morning, Rod.
I'm on the corner. Good morning.
good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Salner.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Good morning, Dr. Berry. I see the petitioner has her hand raised. I'm just going to give her the opportunity. I believe she can't stay on long. Is that okay with you, Commissioner?
Yeah, that's fine. And I think one of our doctors is also in there.
Yes. I keep trying to promote him to panelist and it's not working. Ah, there it goes. Perfect. Good morning, Dr. Prywes. Oh, okay.
Oh, looks like the hand went down.
Yes, yeah, I saw that. Oh, no.
Morning.
I'm gonna allow her to talk. Good morning, Stu. I see you had your hand raised. I just gave you permission to speak.
Okay.
But
hi. Can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
I sent in my testimony last night. I was wondering if you received it.
Yes, I did, and I have sent it to the board. So
Okay.
in case you're not able to be on until we get to that portion, they do have it. Okay.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right. You're welcome.
Tiffany, are we expecting some of the other board members to attend? It's just after 8:30 now. I know we have people have busy schedules and we have a lot on our agenda.
Yes, give me one moment. Let me just open up my. Okay, we have Dr. Carlisi's here, Dr. Berry, Dr. Prywes, Dr. Salmer. I know Dr. Perlson, I believe he wasn't able to attend anymore. So we're just missing Dr. DeSouza. Sometimes he comes in a little late.
Okay. He'll hopefully be here. I believe he's presenting later. So hopefully you'll be here for that, or it will be a shorter meeting. Well, I'll go ahead and call the meeting.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, but we have 4. We have a quorum, so we're good.
Yeah. We actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, and hopefully others will be joining soon. So kind of to begin, before we move on to the sort of substance of the meeting, I just wanted to express my thanks and gratitude to all of you. As you all know, I will very likely not be here the next time this board meets, and it's been a real honor and privilege. And I think our medical program, which really many of you have been here from the beginning, or certainly towards the beginning of, as have I, has really been better because of your all's input and participation into that. I don't know what my exact final day will be, but if we continue on our schedule of, 2-3 times a year having meetings, this very likely will be my last time with all of you. So thank you, and it's been a real pleasure. I expect the programs will continue to thrive and flourish, both with the advice and input from all of you, and we have some of whom are on here now, a great team at DCP who really has done much of the work in any event. So, but thank you. And with that, I will entertain a vote to approve the minutes from last meeting.
So moved.
I have a second.
Same.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Great, thank you. I will now move into the program update. Lots happened since you last met. So I have a lot here. Feel free. I don't know if you want to sort of ask questions as I go along. Otherwise, certainly at the end, want to answer any questions, provide time for input then. So again, there's been an incredible team at DCP, many who have been here a long time, many who have been recently hired, who have really been working incredibly hard the last couple of years to get an adult use cannabis market up and running for people in Connecticut, while also being sensitive to the need to preserve and protect the medical marijuana program. And it's been a lot of work, a tough balancing act, but they've done an amazing job. And as this program continues to roll out, I think we'll continue to see the benefits of some of the upfront planning and thought that went into this. And in terms of sort of some of the basic statistics, we have about 49,000 patients. So a little less than the 50,000, but we're still been hovering there, and it'll be interesting. We're not quite a month into the adult use program to see how those numbers continue. You may find that some decide they're move into the adult market. I think others will remain as patients, but we'll continue monitoring that. We have over 16,000 certifying physicians or APRNs, so that numbers actually continues to tick up, showing even further kind of acceptance of this product as medicine by the medical community. In terms of the adult use launch, so January 10th was the official launch date, so a little less than a month ago. At the time of launch, we had 9 approved hybrid retailers. So a hybrid retailer is someone who can sell to both patients and adults. Only 7 of them were ready to open on day one. So to open these businesses, they had to sometimes do build out, because some of them are, for example, having separate lines for adults and patients. There was some zoning approvals. There was a variety of things they need to do to be ready for both the larger number of people coming into their facilities and the need to ensure there was still patient access. Since then, I believe we're up to now 10 approved and 8 are open. So, and I think as you continue in coming months, and certainly throughout 2023, you're going to see a lot more businesses open, not just in the space of retailers or hybrid retailers, but growers. And there's really a whole supply chain that's going to be developing over time. So there's going to be food manufacturers, product manufacturers, there'll be more delivery businesses, transporters. So it's going to be a whole range. Just, even companies who can do the packaging and labeling. And a lot of these are going to be social equity applicants. So the initial businesses were the medical businesses who are already sort of had their businesses set up and were able to move a little more quickly. But we now have probably well over 100 businesses somewhere in a license application process, and including several that'll be hybrid retailers in addition to regular retailers. And what that means, more hybrid retailers will mean more locations patients can go. And with more retailers, it'll mean more places for adult users to go, which may mean a little bit less. It won't be the same businesses serving patients that have to serve all of the adults also. So I think over time, we'll see more options and easier access through those venues. So in terms of the applications, there were a number of ways for people to get into this business. The one was the conversion, of course, of the medical businesses, but then there was a limited period for an equity business to open in a disproportionately impacted area, to open a cultivation business. We have a number of those that are in process. There was also an opportunity for equity joint ventures, and this is an opportunity for one of our existing businesses to partner with an equity partner, create a business somewhere among the many business types that are available, and this sort of would allow more equity applicants to get in while partnering with someone who maybe already has the experience of being in this fairly highly regulated market. In addition, there was a lottery process, and we ran a lottery for social equity applicants, and then a lottery that was just a general lottery for everybody, although any social equity applicant who didn't win the first lottery was put into the second. And within that, we kept a 50-50 ratio from those 2 lotteries. So those have all those licensing periods have now closed out. And so through those different avenues, that's sort of how we get to these businesses that are somewhere in a process and will probably be opening in the coming months and throughout the year. In terms of protecting patients, before any business can convert, we required them to present to us a medical preservation plan, and it was carefully reviewed by the team at DCP. So we didn't have precise requirements of how they had to do it, but we insisted before we would approve them to convert that they had a real plan in place that we felt confident they could execute on that would protect patients. So a lot of them are doing online ordering. They're doing separate expedited lines for patients. Some places have delivery, which is an option for patients. So it's something that's there. There's some additional benefits that patients are seeing. So there's greater product variety, and certainly as the supply chain opens up more, that will increase. But so any product available to adults, a patient can also buy. But in addition, there are medical only products. Some of them are based on the format. So pills, capsules, really medical design products are only available to patients. In addition, there's higher THC products available to our patients. There's no sales tax on medicine. And so that's another benefit that patients enjoy. And they can purchase more in a transaction. So one opportunity for a patient is to buy a larger amount, so they only have to go in once a month and can get their full allotment of medicine. We are, certainly aware, and it's only been a few weeks, so we're monitoring it, that there has been some concern by patients that prices are going up or that there are some shortages, at least in specific product types. Some of this, it's a little hard for a market and for businesses to know when, at the point in time when they're growing and manufacturing these products, what the demand is going to look like many months later. So I think a lot of this will work itself out as sort of the businesses get that feedback from customers as to what are the popular product types and varieties. An example of that is gummy. We don't allow the gummy bears or the products that look like something that a kid may accidentally eat in Connecticut, but still the gummy material is available and is very popular. It hadn't been available at all in the medical program. So that's an example of one where patients may be wanting to move more towards that away from another edible, and there's not that much available yet. So we're working on that. There will be more businesses coming in. I think that will help with both supply amounts and variety, and certainly greater supply will also weigh into how the pricing will also ultimately play out. We are, though, monitoring, and we are seeing robust medical sales. We don't have numbers quite ready to release. We're working on that. Sort of with the market opening on the 10th, we want to give it a month, make sure we're understanding the data properly. But our plan is every month on the 10th to then release data. But from our preliminary analysis, patients are certainly buying product, and in fact, they're buying more than those sales are higher than the adult use sales. So there isn't an ultimate shortage that's preventing any sales to patients, but we will continue watching that. Some other changes that are flowing from the adult use launch. One, we've introduced a seed to sales tracking system. It's one most states have, possibly all, that especially that have an adult use market. Before, we just had our supply chain was the growers who did everything, or we called them producers, and then the dispensaries who sold. But now you're going to have the cultivators or producers. You'll have the manufacturers, whether it's edibles or other types of products. Then you may have a separate company doing labeling and transporting, and then the retail level. So there's a lot, it's going to be a lot more touch points, a lot more business opportunities. So we've introduced a seed to sale tracking system. That's very new, and that's sort of how we're monitoring how the products are flowing and how we can monitor that there is enough continuing to be available for medical patients. So that's new to the program. We've also introduced more robust packaging and labeling requirements now that this product's going to be more widely available. A lot of this is taking into consideration a concern that as this becomes a recreational product and is in more households, it may become, inadvertently ingested by young children who would confuse it. So for edibles, for example, products need to be packaged in black and white packaging, so it's not going to look like a candy or another product that doesn't have THC. There's going to be a big symbol on the packaging indicating this is a THC product to further help avoid confusion. There'll be a variety of warning labels, some that may even rotate around, but reminding people this is not FDA approved. It's illegal to operate a vehicle while under the influence. Warning people about the impact of prolonged use, the potential for intoxicating effects. So there's going to be a number of warnings to remind people, this is the product to be using responsibly. We're also limiting serving sizes. Even adults especially if they're new to the product, may not fully appreciate the delayed impact the product may have on them. So for edible products, for example, 5 milligrams is the most THC that can be in an adult product. Again, patients can have higher amounts. And importantly, and this goes to all of it, and sort of talking about the packaging, the products and the packaging can't be designed to look like a non-THC product. So we know some of those things are floating out there, but that's not part of the legal regulated market that DCP has created. Finally, an important part of what we've been doing and some of our sister agencies have been doing is working on education campaigns. So we have one about safe storage, or what to do in the event of accidental ingestion. The Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services launched a pretty robust campaign called Be in the Know CT, with a lot of information about the health impacts and addiction. The Department of Transportation recently launched a campaign reminding people that impaired driving is not okay. So those are all out there as well. So with that, I will open it up to questions or discussions. And in addition, want to point out there was a suggestion that maybe you all would want to discuss the effects that recreational or adult use may have on medical registrations. So I'm going to sort of open it up. I don't know if people want to talk or raise their hands. Either works for me.
I have a question.
Yep.
Michelle, in the medical market, we have qualified pharmacists who screen patients, and they're well trained to educate the patients. In the recreational market, how are we regulating the education of the businesses in terms of what they're telling people who come in to their stores? Or we don't have that same kind of educational piece. So is there some sort of regulation in terms of education?
There's not specifically for the adult use. So for people who go in as a medical patient, that pharmacist relationship would remain. All of those will be unchanged. But if somebody just goes in as an adult to buy this product to use recreationally, there's no specific educational requirements the way we do when we're treating it as a medical product. Now, I will say there are the warning labels that I discussed. So there are those reminders. Also, just as a matter of business, the businesses generally are hiring people who have some knowledge about the product, can talk to people a bit about what their reason for getting this is. Even people who aren't patients often want this because they want to sleep better at night, or they want, they're looking for a very specific type of effect. And so generally the businesses are going to have people working in the stores who can help people figure that out.
But the DCP does not place any requirements in terms of a minimal amount of education for those owners to educate their employees. I mean, it can be very inconsistent. And I found that, going to other states, certainly states like Colorado, they may, because they've had more experience, they may have their so-called bud tenders. Some may be more knowledgeable than others. I guess my concern is that those who are using recreational may not get the knowledge and the education going in and the problems with toxicity and people not really understanding maybe a public health concern.
Yeah, there's broader educational campaigns, but there's not other than this warnings that will be there. There's not because this isn't medicine. You think when you go to a package store and you buy liquor, you don't get necessarily educated specifically by the person selling you the product. So where it's being treated as a purely recreational product for adults, there's broad education and warnings that are being done throughout, but there won't be, or there's not a requirement for a one-on-one conversation the way there would be in medical, where you're really working with that pharmacist.
And you have to be over the age of 21 to purchase. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, so this is only for 21 and over for the adults. So I know Dr. Sellner had raised his hand before, and I see Dr. Carlesi next.
Michelle, thanks, and certainly wishing you well in your career, and we are so thankful to you for all of your leadership. Of the original 4 growers, we understand that one of them is not functioning at this point in time, or maybe thinking about not functioning, and so for the foreseeable, for the time between now and when new businesses are up, you were talking about supply issues. Are there just 3 growers now that are making product, and will there be enough product for both the medical and the recreational business?
Yeah, so at this point, certainly we're aware of that. That business is still producing product. We don't, we're going to monitor the situation. My expectation would be they wouldn't fully shut down. That's a huge business, a lot of products. So often, even when a business is having financial challenges, they may, through bankruptcy, kind of start up again, letting off some of their debt as a way to reorganize themselves. It's possible they would sell to someone. So at this point, we're not anticipating that they will fully shut down all production, but we're certainly monitoring, and I think it's good that we do have a number of other businesses entering the cultivation or micro cultivation space, so that over time we won't be as dependent on such a small number. And I see Rod has joined us. I don't know if he has anything to add to that.
Yeah, just to be clear, they are operating today, and we have no notice that there's going to be a disruption in their operation, and so and we don't anticipate a major disruption. They are, I believe, openly offering themselves up for sale, but so we don't expect a closure, I guess is best. But obviously, we never know. This is a free market economy that operates in this particular way, but we're certainly monitoring that. And part of the reason we had Seed to Sale is so we could watch these things in a way that maybe was with more transparency for us, so we can make these adjustments as we need to.
Thank you.
Thanks. Dr. Carlesi?
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you. I had a question. So on the recreational side, a lot of the patients that I see are questioning, well, now it's recreational. I don't need to get my medical card anymore, and I could just get cannabis at the recreational side. The question that everybody's having is, on the recreational side, they're not going to get the same type of products that they have on the medical side, specifically high CBD, low THC, versus on the recreational side, it'd be more of a higher THC concentration or pure THC concentration. Is that true?
Well, we don't have a mandated low CBD product, I don't believe, for the medical side. I mean, the benefits to remaining as a patient, one, in July, that patient registration fee goes away. So that was something that was part of the law that passed, that provides in July of 2023, that fee goes away. So there will be a wider variety of products, but we're not mandating exactly what the THC CBD consistency would be. Really, the limits on the adult market are really the high THC product. We wouldn't prevent somebody from selling a low THC product on the adult use market. But your patients overall, they can buy anything that's also available to adults, plus an added selection of products that will only be available to the patients.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Michelle, quick question. By the way, we're going to miss you.
Thank you.
This is sort of an off-tangent question, but there's some talk federally about the CBD oral, edibles and the potential for liver damage. Are you guys hearing much about that or not?
We're certainly hearing that the FDA is talking about that, as they have been for some period of time. Right. We have some of the lawyers or Director Marriott here who are following that more closely, but I think it's something they continue to be thinking about. Here, Julianne, I know you have thoughts on this matter. You're on mute.
I think Rod and I are pretty on par with how much we're tracking this. I mean, really, there was new FDA language that came out recently, and where they were denying applications for dietary supplements, and yet they denied those applications before, and they have a work group that they are forming related to the impact of CBD stemming from hemp. And so we're actively monitoring the situation, but we don't expect movement extremely quickly on any of this. So Rod, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I would say we don't have any specific reports here related to our medical program, which has kind of been around kind of the longest, and the only time we would get a real complaint about that, if it was a dietary supplement, it wouldn't fall within the scope of the department. I think the thing we do hear a little bit more of that is interesting just about THC consumption in general is the hyperemesis, so the vomiting. And I think it's really important is because Dr. Wolf would be really happy that I said this. He works in our department now. For patients to be aware that it's really important to report what you're taking, whether it's a medical cannabis product, although that does show up in the prescription drug monitoring program, or an adult use product. When you report to kind of an emergency department or any kind of medical provider, so that when they see kind of a prolonged hyperemesis or GI disruption, that they can at least consider cannabis as having a role in that. There was an article just recently about that where a person was struggling with a bunch of GI issues for over 2 years, and it took them to solve it because that information wasn't brought forth early in the patient presenting. And so while we don't have a lot of specific reports to us about that, it is a bit of a known issue, and the pandemic really highlighted some of that.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. Barry.
First, I want to say it's been such a pleasure working with you. I've been on this with my colleagues for a while, and it's been such a dynamic evolution of this program. And so it's a testament to you and your team. So we will miss you, and I wish you best of luck.
Oh, thank you.
In regards, just based on the last comments that were made, when is there a reporting mechanism so that if people have a bad reaction, that they report it to you or some other DPH, or that you're kind of cataloging these things?
We will certainly take in complaints. It's not, I know we've talked about this in various ways of how to do, DCP is not set up to do the kind of medical research and get that feedback.
You know where I'm going.
Yeah. I do pay attention. We're not set up to do the kind of medical studies. That is something that would, to the extent people are patients and are in the program that way, we expect them to be letting their doctor know. But just like any kind of controlled substance where we regulate, we're not set up. We'll take the complaints when there are specific problems, but not, we're not set up to do it in a robust sort of medical research kind of way. And I don't know, Rod, if you wanted to add to
Yeah,
that.
I'll add to that just well, before you go on, Dr. Barry, if I may. We hear your concern there too, and we share that concern. And to Commissioner's point, we were never set up with that mechanism built, and it's probably what you would need is more of a software component, right, with a kind of a data analysis tool set on top of it. We do investigate complaints about products, but not necessarily specifically to the side effects that or the impact on the patient in that particular way. We'll look at the manufacturing and see what's happened, the lab testing, things like that, as we kind of track a product back in from it to its manufacturer to its kind of origins. The Poison Control Center may have some of that data. They recently announced that they have some kind of extrapolated potential kind of accidental ingestion data and impacts from that more than we do. And I think they're a little bit kind of set up for that better than we are in general to analyze that a long time at this point. But it's something that I think we continue to kind of think about and we'll hopefully find a way to do it. But I guess MedWatch may take some of those complaints in to FDA, but their release of that data sometimes is on the slower side of things for all the reasons, like the analysis, taking in data from 50 states, tracking down where it actually came from, whether it's a dietary supplement or an adult use cannabis product or a medical product, and kind of the challenge of having these conflicts with federal law and in each state having their own system. But I think that kind of sums up where I'm at.
There are two different points related to what you're saying. There's research, right? Because I do believe there's efficacy in medical marijuana, but we're not standardizing care in terms of dose, route, attached to a specific condition per se, like we do with other medications. That's separate than like if you had like people who are having a bad reaction to a specific, that's not research, that's public health. So like if you would report, like if you were eating tainted meat, there's a reporting mechanism so that you can do an epidemiological assessment to make sure, well, that this from this place, this particularly whatever lot, to take that off the market. So is there any kind of mechanism, because the symptoms may be indicative of a bad reaction to a specific product, not that it's a side effect, but that's what I mean in terms of, is there a mechanism that if, hypothetically somebody was taking a medication, particularly now you have this hybrid entities that are going to be in development, and you may not have the same kind of, dedicated people who work exclusively with patients. Is there any way that a patient can report, maybe not to you, but with DPH in that regard?
So like so potentially a consumer or a patient, an adult use consumer or a patient. I don't know if the local public health departments are taking this in, because I think a lot of times those reporting requirements fall into local health and then they get reported back up into public health. I'm not 100% sure on that, and so it would be inappropriate for me to answer it in any other way. But I'll look into it and I'll try to get back to you on it. They've not reached out to me to my department, to the department or the division that I'm aware of yet about any issues. But we would always take those seriously, and we have recall mechanisms built into the law. So if we saw something like that start to happen, especially if there was a little cluster of them, we'll see the sale. Now we can actually freeze the sale of some products too, based on the recall, and flag it kind of more quickly throughout our system, which is a good public health tool for us to have at our disposal. But if we don't have data, we can't make those decisions. So it's a good point, and we'll look into it further.
Okay, so, but that means that there is something so that you can know to recall, right? Somebody can.
Yeah. So I have a mechanism to note the recall through the system at this point, and it should actually block it at the point of sale, provided everything operates as tested.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, observations, discussions anyone wants to have sort of around the new state of the cannabis marketplace?
Commissioner, one other quick question. There's been at least some scuttlebutt that the feds are considering changing the Schedule I status. Do you have any information as to whether that's could be likely or what the timeline might be?
It's an idea that's been floating for quite a while. I wouldn't expect it anytime soon, and then it gets complicated. You know, it's one thing to just deschedule it, and then you have a really unregulated sort of situation. Or are they going to tie sort of descheduling or maybe a change in schedule? You know, in Connecticut, we've changed it to a Schedule II drug. So how the feds, and you see it with CBD, how are they then going to treat this product if once they acknowledge it's not Schedule I? But it's a conversation that's been going on for quite a while. I'm sure eventually something will happen, but I'm not expecting it this year.
I think there was some initiative to look at it because of the financial and banking issues related to cannabis.
Yeah.
And I don't know if those things can be handled separately or if it's all related.
I mean, there have been a lot of ideas in that I suspect maybe happen more quickly in terms of how do you, create there's, I think it's called the Safe Banking Act. So there have been, and there already is guidance from FINRA and others in terms of to allow banks to work with these well-regulated cannabis businesses in a way where you don't have to do the suspicious activity reports in the same sort of way you would if the drug sales were happening outside a well-regulated state system. So I could see something happening on the banking thing more quickly, because I think that's a problem that's a little easier to solve than trying to legalize and regulate the product itself. But it's certainly something that's been kicking around for a while, but never seems to get enough traction to actually pass anywhere.
Thank you.
Dr. Perlson? You're on mute. No.
Godfrey, you're muted.
Still on mute.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, we really are going to miss you.
Thank you.
Do we have any information on the price point for sales compared to surrounding states? Just comparing apples to apples.
Maybe more anecdotally than anything. I think, and the prices, it's a competitive market, so we're not setting the prices, we're not regulating the prices. It's sort of being kind of supply and demand are doing that. As you get more supply out there, more retailers out there, I expect prices will drop, but we're not doing it. And it's so new as well. So it's very hard to do that comparison. And it's very new in New York and in Rhode Island as well. So other than Massachusetts, there's not a lot of data on the prices and how they're settling in.
It's also hard to really kind of match it up because Massachusetts, I think, had 2 stores open on the initial day, but they were also the first one in the region to have an adult use sale or an adult use market. And now there's a lot more state to state competition, if you will, and that more are starting to participate. Although New York is, I think, just opened its 2nd location, and Rhode Island has a very different program from us from the ground up, and so it's hard to really compare apples to apples. But we will look at that, but I think it's probably better to have a month's worth of data than just the first couple of days. And so we're just getting to that month point. We want to review our data, make sure it's reporting as we would expect it to, and then we'll share more data as we can.
Is the flexibility built into that? So if we're much higher or lower than surrounding states, once there's the opportunity to look, can we adapt, or how does that happen?
We can't, we don't do price regulation, so we can't in a direct way. we have the levers of sort of a little bit of control over not demand, but of supply. So that is, but even that is a little tricky, because when people apply for a license and is approved, and then start offering product, it's much later in time than maybe a moment where you're seeing pricing. So ultimately, the hope would be if you get to an equilibrium where it's a competitive market, and now kind of people are pricing based on their cost, and to the extent that, that'll kind of get you to a competitive price. See another hand? Oh, sorry.
That's helpful. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Dr. Fries?
Okay. I wanted to reiterate what all my colleagues have said. We are going to miss you, and we wish you the best.
Thank you,
Michelle. I don't know if now's the time, but it was brought up about the CBD issue. The FDA is not going to, as you mentioned, regulate it anytime soon, but I wanted to make our panel aware that when patients come into my office and ask about CBD, I often refer to the Arthritis Foundation, has CBD guidelines for adults with arthritis. And among these takeaways include the fact that if they're going to purchase some of these CBD products, they need to obviously make sure that they're buying from a reputable company that's been batch tested for purity, potency, and safety, and should be able to be provided with a certificate of analysis. I think that's really important. They make other recommendations too, as we do in the medical field, starting with low doses and increasing in small increments. But I just would like to refer everyone to those Arthritis Foundation guidelines, because I think it's a good start. And a lot of people have questions about CBD use, especially now, since we're seeing it in everything, including food products. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that.
Yeah, thank you. And we've actually, based on your feedback, have added an agenda item to have
Right.
to allow for a full discussion on that. But if there's nothing more on the program update, well, it looks like the petitioner can be here to listen to the discussion of her petition. She submitted her written testimony, which you all should have hopefully received. In addition, that was the only testimony that we received. So if we want, we can move on to the consideration of that. And I'm still not seeing Dr. D'Souza on the call.
Yes, he sent me an email. I just want to give an update that he apologized and he'll be rescheduling his presentation.
Okay, so if there's nothing more on the program update, perhaps we can consider this petition, and then we can move on to a longer discussion of CBD if people want to do that. So with, I guess we'll start it sort of the formal way. Do I have a motion to approve? So it's vulvar lichen sclerosis, and then we can have the discussion before the vote.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Discussion.
Since pain is a sort of a hallmark of the condition, although I realize it's a whole symptom complex and it's a chronic condition, would the patients already fit into our category of chronic pain without our needing to approve an additional qualifying condition, or because of the other broad variety of symptoms that these inflammatory conditions cause, should we consider it separately from chronic pain?
I think that's probably more for the panel of medical experts, whether somebody presenting with this condition, if you feel like you would already be able to recommend them for medical marijuana, or if you think this should be added. So I will let you continue that discussion.
Yeah, that was my thought too. But the question is, is this patient suffering? Is it the pain symptom that she's concerned about primarily, or is it the inflammatory skin response that she's concerned with? If it's simply the pain issue, then and I would agree that we don't need to add another one. The other is that the article that they presented for us to review was on vulvodynia, which is obviously a symptom of this chronic inflammatory skin condition. So the question is whether or not, in my mind, are we adding vulvodynia as opposed to a skin condition for approval?
I think, can I just interject? I think the other thing that she was concerned about was the usage of steroids and the effect of the steroids on a long-term basis, causing thinning of the skin and more secondary problems. And the potential of using cannabis in its place of steroids might be a beneficial positive effect for her, getting the pain relief as well as reducing inflammation and less of a risk for her.
So I would like to interject. I would not put forth vulvodynia as a substitute, because that's actually a diagnosis of exclusion that, you know, in and of itself, that the way the OB/GYN doctors tend to attribute it. And so I think in this case, one of the reasons why we approved chronic pain was to be a catchment for a lot of these diseases, particularly since there's a long time for patients to go through this process. And there is evidence that, medical marijuana can help with pain in a variety of vulvar diseases. I don't think there's enough data from my own personal research to say that it can actually treat the underlying disease in terms of the autoimmune response. I think it may help with acute inflammation, but not long-term. I do agree also, it's an opportunity to give patients a break from steroids, because like as Dr. Kalisi has said, it has its own side effects as well. So I just want to clarify to the panel, not to take away from this patient's story, but this does seem to fall within the broader category of why we advocated for chronic pain. So doctors could prescribe it to her tomorrow under that rubric. So I'm just trying to clarify, if that is the main issue for this patient, she's already covered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree.
You certainly implied that there are urinary and fecal issues that are attendant to the diagnosis as well. So, maybe some of it isn't completely pain related, but a significant portion seemed to be. So I tend to agree with you, Linda, that I think it fits within the rubric of our chronic pain designation.
Yeah, I would also agree with you, Linda. Most of the anecdotal stuff has actually been with CBD with this. And it falls into that common category of anecdotal, and unfortunately not enough research, which is most of these cases. There's not a lot out there. CBD probably would help in some people, because of the anti-inflammatory, and this is an inflammatory underlying issue, but I would agree with your statement.
And possibly topical products, Jonathan, right?
No, it's most of from what I've seen out there, it's mostly topical that's used for this.
Well, yeah, one of the issues that I have is that a lot of the medical dispensaries in other states have provided suppository use, and we do not yet have that in Connecticut from talking to some of the pharmacists. And I think in this particular patient, that would be extremely valuable, but that's another issue in terms of the producers and providing that to a patient who might, benefit from that application.
So are we, I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm just trying to see where the consensus is. So are we saying that, we're not, in and of itself, we're not saying that we wouldn't cover it, but that it's already covered? Is that the consensus?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. We do have the petitioner here. I mean, we have her written testimony. I don't even know, Tiffany, if you want to, I guess if she can raise her hand if she wants to speak to this, but otherwise we'll move on to a vote. I think. So go ahead. This is the petitioner. Yeah, if you want to sort of address kind of, I think there were some questions about what underlying kind of situation you were hoping to have this, that you feel like maybe chronic pain isn't already covering. Go ahead, Sue.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I guess I'm confused myself because you're mentioning the vulvodynia, and that is already covered on the list of debilitating diseases. So how would the lichen sclerosus fall under that? Hello?
Is pain a symptom of the lichen sclerosus?
At times, and especially during intercourse and bowel movements, yes.
So chronic pain is already a condition for qualifying for the program.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Go ahead.
Chronic pain is already a qualifying condition for the medical marijuana program. So your certifying physician would be able to qualify you for the medical marijuana program on the basis of chronic pain as a symptom.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Yeah, and I'd just also like to add, vulvodynia is basically pain. It's not a diagnosis specific to what the cause of the pain is. So it covers you in terms of that, painful component. Vulvodynia is not a diagnosis of specific, what we would say, pathophysiology of why there's pain there. It's just saying that there's pain in the vulval area. So you would be totally covered under that.
Okay.
And this highlights in general that clinicians who are certifying patients need to understand that category of chronic pain is broad enough to cover, so patients don't have to wait months like Sue had to petition for something like this.
Yep, absolutely.
And right. And Sue, also just to indicate that for those of us who've seen patients in the past with lichen sclerosus, we know how serious a condition it is, and we're not in any way wanting to minimize, the severe symptoms that you've and others with this disease have experienced. We just think that you already qualify for the program with the current qualifying conditions, and therefore we're not sure that there's any reason to add it.
Okay, well, as long as I know that it falls under the chronic pain, I wasn't aware of that. I thought I had to see a specific diagnosis in order to apply for the medical marijuana.
No, and Sue, just to amplify what was said, that means you can get care like Monday, much sooner, because it's already qualified.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you all so much for understanding and being empathetic. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
So I think based on the discussion, we sort of know where this is going, but we'll make an official vote. And there's three things, and this will be on the written form, but you're considering whether the medical condition, treatment, or disease is debilitating, whether marijuana is more likely to have the potential to be beneficial to treat or alleviate the disease, and then also other matters to consider, which in this instance is whether I think it's already covered. I don't know if lawyers feel like we need to on the record go through all three of those independently, or if we can just go straight to a vote.
I'd say straight to a vote.
Okay, just on your form, fill that out properly. So there was a motion that we've been discussing of whether to add, be sure I read it correctly here, vulvar lichen sclerosis to the list of debilitating medical conditions. All in favor? Okay, we have one. All opposed? Okay. And again, so it would appear I can't see all of the votes, but if you've, so we the two hands up voting for the opposed. Tiffany, do you have what you sort of need initially? And of course, everybody fill out your, we do need the written records, but it would appear, and based on the discussion, that we believe it's already covered.
Yes. No, I got what I needed. All opposed. So with that, obviously, we will need to table the presentation by Dr. D'Souza since he's not here. Oh, Dr. Barry, or maybe that's your vote, my bad. But now we do have next, if we want to continue a discussion on educating patients regarding CBD use. We have, Tiffany, did you need to? Do we, I'm just not sure, do we have to vote yes or no for minors as well? Or that doesn't?
No, I think
Okay.
once it's no, it's
It's
no,
just-
and there wasn't a petition to make it for only minors.
Okay.
On the form, certainly that'll be the written record of the vote.
Okay, and I think Dr. Privacy, he's had his hand up for a while. I don't know.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
It's just been left there.
Okay.
I'm just, the question about completing this form, is the medical condition debilitating? I mean, it is, but we're not approving it. So I just want to make sure I fill out the form properly.
So I think, the first two questions are whether it's debilitating and whether medical marijuana can be helpful. But then the third is, are there other matters relevant to the approval or denial? And I think based on the conversation, it seems the other issue that was relevant is that it's already encompassed into a larger condition that's already under there. So I think.
So that's a yay.
Right. So on that one, I think based on that is how you would get to the ultimate kind of vote that people seem to have made here in the meeting. It's to say, yeah, it's a problem and this could be helpful, but it's already covered. So we don't need to keep adding to the list since it's already subsumed.
Okay. And brain development is a nay. All right.
So that's for the underage. I mean, we can certainly, if somebody wants to make a vote about whether to allow it for underage patients, but I think the motion seemed to cover everything. It was just broadly, should it even be on the list?
Mm-hmm.
But
That's a nay.
okay.
All right. Thank you.
And then I will open it up if people want to discuss CBD use, or that can be something for a future agenda, depending on how long people can stay in the meeting, or if people want more time to kind of collect their thoughts on the issue.
Well, I already mentioned what I wanted to say about recommendations to my patients in terms of their over-the-counter use. I think it needs to be clarified by the FDA. We're still awaiting because it's not a dietary supplement, it's not a food additive. Yet we have Epidiolex, which is a pharmaceutical grade CBD product. So and there are certain risks involved, certainly in higher concentrations with liver enzymes and interactions with other medications. And so I think there has to be some formal education, but I thought the guidelines from the Arthritis Foundation was a good start. And I just want to make everyone aware of that. But I'm curious what other practitioners are telling their patients about CBD.
Anybody else want to
Pretty-
weigh
pretty
in?
much-
And if you want to send those guidelines to Tiffany, she can circulate them to the
Sure.
board.
I can do that now.
Pretty much the same thing, Mitch. You know, on the same wavelength as you. You know, there's a lot of literature out there with CBD, and especially the arthritis organization, as you mentioned. So, you know, I try to direct my patients towards certain societies with that, and understanding that, you know, it is a chemical that can affect other medications. So everyone needs to be aware of that, and the primary care doctors and everyone else in the medical field needs to be aware of that as well. So I agree.
Yeah, this is Godfrey. We're conducting a CBD study at the moment. And what I tell patients is just to be aware there's a huge disconnect in dosing between Epidiolex and other compounds that are given up to 1 gram a day, and what's available in over-the-counter products that's usually a few milligrams.
Right.
And just to be aware of that and the potential implications.
Right. But Godfrey, there are also products that I've seen out there, my patients bring in, that are 1,000 milligrams of CBD. The question is, you know, the quality control.
Yes, I'm starting to see those products too. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Is there any further discussion on this, or otherwise, if somebody wants to make a motion to adjourn?
Just one last thing about that is that there's also a concern about this Delta 8 THC, which is actually something that's synthesized from CBD. And we're starting to see that on the market. And it has, there seems to be some concerns about it in terms of its effect. And I guess this was just something that was overlooked when we had the legislation to open up CBD from the farm law that came about. So Delta 8 THC is a concern also that kind of fell under the radar when we opened it up to CBD. And I think that's also something that we should be aware of and the need for the FDA to give us some guidance on that.
Yeah, certainly federally, that would be helpful, because I think states have been trying, including Connecticut, to address that, but it's a little hard when through the legalization of the hemp market for states on an individual basis to fully kind of wrap their head around how to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask one last quick question? I know people want to go, but has there been any word from the federal government about potential national legalization of marijuana? Like, I've heard that it's been put forth, but like, have you heard anything about that?
I don't have information really beyond what you're hearing, so I think it's one of these things where you've got so many states who have already legalized it, so there's conversations, but it never quite gets far enough to fully pass. So I think it'll probably happen eventually, but it may be a while, and then it's a matter of how it passes. Does it pass where it's just, it falls into the same realm as CBD, where they're sort of say, well, we're descheduling it, but you know, are the
Yeah, they're chipping
recommendations
away at it
be
middle.
regulated federally,
Right.
and those are in some ways different things.
Well, I can share, Linda, that I attended a webinar recently, and one of the participants in that webinar was a lobbyist for the national cannabis business industry. And from what I learned from that is that it doesn't sound like legalization is going to happen on a federal level anytime soon. You know, as was mentioned, I think the biggest concern in Congress right now is the banking issue for a lot of businesses to be able to address that. So I don't think that the legalization is going to happen, and it's still going to be regulated on a state-by-state basis. I mean, we have, you know, 3/4 of the states have a medical program already, and we have, I think, 11 that have recreational. So I think that's going to exist for a while, from what I could gather.
So I see at least the most that they could do is probably change it from being a Schedule 1 drug.
I don't know that, you know, I didn't even get a sense that that's where at least the business aspect of it, which is a pretty strong lobby in Congress, is pushing towards, at least at this point. You know,
I mean, I know if outside of the business, it's like if you use medical marijuana and you go into a state that it's not legal, it being a Schedule 1 changes everything, and your pain doesn't stop at the border of a state. So it's just the concept, the you know, the practicality of what we do here should be transportable. I'm going to leave that at that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Linda. But unfortunately, I think the strongest lobbyists that are in Washington are more on the business end than on the medical end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, if anybody wants to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
No.
Second.
Anyone opposed? I'm going to keep us all here. No, it's been wonderful seeing all of you. I will take it that the motion passed then, and thank you all.
Yeah.
Stay warm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your
let us know where you go and what you do.
Absolutely.
Michelle, we wish you well.
Well, thank you very much. I'll still be in Connecticut somewhere, I suspect. So, but it's been a real pleasure and honor. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye.
Good luck.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.